It's a quiet afternoon in the South Downs, and if you were to stumble upon Sherlock Holmes during this period, you might find him doing something entirely unexpected, tending to a hive of bees. The man who once spent his nights chasing shadows through the fog of London is now a man of the earth, seeking the predictable, rhythmic order of nature. But as we learn in his final great adventure, his last bow, peace is often just a thin veil over a much more chaotic reality. This story is different from the classic Holmes adventures we know so well. It's not told from the perspective of Dr. Watson, but in a more detached third-person view, which reflects how the world itself has changed. The era of the gentleman thief and the localized street crime is fading, replaced by something much larger, much more dangerous, and much more organized. The narrative takes us to the eve of the First World War. We are introduced to a man named von Bork, a high-ranking German agent who has spent 4 years embedded in England, meticulously gathering British military secrets. He is a man of immense confidence and arrogance, believing himself to be untouchable. He is preparing to leave the country, and his household has already departed for the Netherlands, leaving him alone with only his elderly English housekeeper. Before he departs, he is visited by Baron von Herling, a German diplomat. Their conversation reveals the scale of von Bork's success. He has acquired vital intelligence that will make him a hero in Berlin. But there is one final piece of the puzzle. Von Bork is waiting for a transaction with an Irish-American informant known as Altamont. This mysterious figure is supposed to deliver a treasure of naval signals, the kind of intelligence that could shift the balance of power in a naval war. When Altamont finally arrives, the tension in the room is palpable. Altamont is presented as a bitter, experienced operative, a man who knows the dangers of the espionage game. He is distrustful of von Bork, mentioning how other German informants have ended up in prison. He refuses to hand over the naval codes until he receives payment, creating a high-stakes standoff in the quiet of the house. And Bork, proud of his security, boasts about his impenetrable safe, even revealing the combination August 1914 to prove its strength. But the moment of triumph is short-lived. When Altamont finally hands over the package, von Bork opens it to find not naval codes, but a book titled Practical Handbook of Bee Culture. Before von Bork can even process the absurdity of the gift, a chloroform-soaked rag is pressed to his face. In a sudden, sharp twist, the masks fall away. Altamont is not an Irish-American informant, he is Sherlock Holmes in a masterfully crafted disguise. And the chauffeur who brought him to the house? That is none other than Dr. John Watson. As the two old friends stand over the unconscious spy, the true scope of the operation is revealed. Holmes hasn't been living a simple retirement as a beekeeper. He has been acting as a high-level operative for the British government. For 2 years, he has been deep undercover, travelling to Chicago, Buffalo, and Ireland to build his credentials as Altamont. He didn't just stumble upon von Bork, he systematically dismantled a German espionage ring, feeding the Germans false intelligence while identifying the leaks in British security. Even the elderly housekeeper was one of his agents, her act of turning off the lights serving as the final signal that the coast was clear for the capture. As the story draws to a close, Holmes and Watson prepare to head back to London to hand the prisoner and his papers over to Scotland Yard. The mystery is solved, the criminal is caught. But there is no sense of triumph in the air. Instead, there is a heavy, sombre weight. As they depart, Holmes looks toward the horizon and speaks of an approaching east wind. Watson, ever the literalist, misinterprets the comment, noting that the weather is actually quite warm. But Holmes corrects him with a prophetic warning. There's an east wind coming all the same. Such a wind as never blew on England yet. It will be cold and bitter, Watson, and a good many of us may wither before its blast. He believes that while the storm will be devastating, it will eventually leave behind a cleaner, better, stronger land. When you look at the story as a whole, it's fascinating to see how much it reflects the world in which Arthur Conan Doyle wrote it. His last bow was published in 1917, right in the middle of the First World War. The east wind that Holmes senses is the reality of the mechanized global warfare that was already tearing Europe apart. The story serves as a bridge between two eras. On one side, you have the Victorian and Edwardian world of Sherlock Holmes, a world of individual crimes, street urchins, and localized mysteries. On the other side, you have the modern world of espionage, state-sponsored sabotage, and total war. There is a profound tension in the way Holmes's life is depicted. We see the contrast between the beekeeper and the hive. Holmes seeks the life of the beekeeper because it represents order, nature, and a predictable, quiet existence. But he is constantly pulled back into the hives of human political conspiracy. The bees are manageable, the humans are not. He tries to find peace in the natural world, but the human world is too loud, too interconnected, and too violent to let him stay. The practical handbook of bee culture itself becomes a powerful symbol in the story. It is the ultimate Trojan horse. To von Bork, it is a joke, a failure of intelligence. But to Holmes, it is a bridge between his two lives. It represents the intersection of his peaceful retirement and his duty to the state. By handing von Bork a book on beekeeping, Holmes is essentially telling the spy that the quiet life is a facade, that beneath the surface of the English countryside lies a sharp, calculating mind dedicated to the defense of the realm. We also see a shift in how the role of the detective is defined. In the earlier stories, Holmes was a private consultant, often working outside the official police structure to solve puzzles for individuals. But in his last bow, he has become an instrument of the state. His goals are no longer about justice in a legal or moral sense, but about national security. The story suggests that as the world becomes more complex, the distinction between crime and warfare begins to blur. The detective is no longer just hunting a murderer, he is hunting a geopolitical threat. The narrative also emphasizes the passage of time. Holmes and Watson are no longer in their heyday. They are older, and they acknowledge the shift in the world around them. Watson is described as the one fixed point in a changing age, providing the emotional stability and loyalty that allows Holmes to navigate the shifting sands of international intrigue. Their partnership, which began in the gaslit streets of 19th century London, now finds itself operating in the shadow of 20th century total war. Ultimately, his last bow is a story about the end of an era. It's the final performance of a character who defined the 19th century, but he is performing in a 20th century world. The detective work that once involved looking for footprints in the mud or analysing cigar ash has evolved into something much more abstract and much more lethal: the infiltration of secret societies and the dismantling of international intelligence networks. As Holmes stands there, looking toward that metaphorical east wind, he isn't just looking at a change in the weather, he is looking at the end of a way of life. The era of the gentleman detective is being swept away by the winds of modern conflict, leaving behind a world where the shadows are no longer just found in the corners of a room, but in the very foundations of international politics. It is a somber, powerful way to say goodbye to a legend, acknowledging that while the puzzles may change, the darkness they hide is always growing.